Talking about good and bad hair, whether you're darky or fair. Oh, my bad. You want a little? Party people and the place to be. What's going on? It's me. You didn't actually think that was just a bit, did you? Like that wasn't just a bit. This be the routine. Yeah, party people. I just got finished watching Good Hair, the documentary by Chris Rock that came out in 2009 that I've been wanting to see really since it came out. But I think it was only in theaters for a very, very short time when it came out. And I don't remember seeing it a whole lot of places on DVD for rent especially, but not even necessarily to buy. So this is my first time being able to see it because it's on YouTube for free. Just look up Good Hair, free with advertisements. And actually, there weren't even that many advertisements, which is weird considering all the ads that YouTube has been bombarding us all with very recently, to the point of freaking nausea and exhaustion. Why? Because they can. Because that's a whole another discussion. But not. I think there's only like one ad in the beginning. I think the rest of the movie was straight all the way through, for me at least. So this documentary, Chris Rock travels all over the world to find out about hair and find out specifically about its impact on black women, some men, but black women, and how we treat our hair as a culture, what we do to it, the kinds of chemicals we put into it. It's very interesting, and I'm glad that I got the chance to see it. The premise of it was, he at the time had young daughters, and he was trying to figure out what to tell them about their hair, and he got curious about it, and he decided to do this documentary, and I'm glad that he did, because he got super in-depth with this. I obviously am black, in case you didn't. I know, shocking. I know. I'm black. I grew up around women getting their hair did all the time. I got cousins that at one point or another did some semblance of something involving hair, whether it was braiding other people's hairs because they had the fastest fingers in the West, or working on weaves, or home perms and home stylings and stuff that was done. My mother was a hairdresser. I grew up with her friends as close family friends as well. So I've seen and been around all. Matter of fact, I met Maya Angelou when I was a young child at the hairdresser, close friend of my mother's, where she would get her hair done. They shared a hairdresser and close friend, and so I met her there a couple of times. So who's in this movie, by the way? The Maya Angelou, not her hairdresser, but although that would have been cool. But so I've seen a lot of this, and so I'm at least conversational in some stuff. Here's what I didn't know, and what I suspect most people in general, but specifically most black people, don't know, if for no other reason because they don't want to know, about the chemicals that they put in their hair. So Chris Rock, because this is going to be spoiler heavy throughout the whole thing, but I'm going to try to keep it relatively brief. Chris Rock goes to the biggest black-owned hair relaxing plant in the country in Greensboro. They also have a beauty college there, et cetera, et cetera. But it's one of the few, first off, one of the only four black-owned businesses that are involved in hair products for black people in the U.S., at least at the time. That was 11 years ago now. Like, who knows what may have happened since then, but at least for right now, or at least as of the print of that movie, there were only four in the United States that were black owned. And so he goes to this one, and they talk very frankly about the chemicals that are in it, and very frankly about some of the effects of working in the plant for too long, the effects on the lungs it can have, because there's an acid that's in it that helps break down the proteins in your hair as a black person to relax it and make it more white appearing. And so they talk about how just a tiny splash can get in your, if it gets in your eye, you may go blind. You will probably go blind at some point. May not even necessarily be right at the moment, but eventually you may go blind. And if you're working around those fumes for too long, it could cause lung cancer and all these other different things. So they talk very frankly, and I'm glad that they did. They talk very frankly about it. Now, immediately you hard cut to a hairstylist putting that stuff in a little girl's hair who's like 5 or 6 years old. And they talk about how young some of these girls are putting these chemicals in their hair to relax it and straighten it and, to give it a certain look that they have. And they talk about the psychological effects of growing up as a black woman, black girl with your hair a certain way, and then seeing different representations of hair that are nowhere near yours, or coming out of the pool with your hair straight, and then you come out and it's curly again, and your friend's reaction, and they go into the talking about white women and people touching their hair, and whether they don't really go into white people in general touching their hair. They touch upon that a little bit. There's one actress who says she's okay with, like, she understands the curiosity of white people that do that, but to not do that to just some random black person that you don't know walking down the street, because that's how you get your fingers bit off. But she at least understands the curiosity of it. This is a movie that if you've ever been that curious white person, go to YouTube after you're finished with this, and after you like, share, and subscribe, and after you go to subscribestar.com and patreon.com, both /surreal469, and help keep the lights on at the party. After you do that, then go to youtube.com and look up Good Hair, because it's free on there. Like, it's from the actual people. It's free on there. And you can get a better understanding of not only the texture of the hair, but what black women mostly go through to get that specific style that they have, other than the natural look. They follow the big hair competition, the big 4 or 5 contestants in the hair competition, their preparations for the big hair competition in Atlanta. They go around the hair competition. They talk about the money. Follow the money. Every documentary needs to be about the money, because there's always money in something. And there is billions of dollars in this. There are billions of dollars in hair. With a B, billions. Whether you're talking about just maintenance of it, hair salons, barbershops, where you're talking about the creams and stuff that gets put in the hair, whether you talk about the actual human hair business, how people in India, over 80% of people in India, they said, have had their hair shaved at least twice in their lifetime for this ritualistic ceremony, in which, because they see hair as vanity, as a vanity. So to sacrifice that to their gods, they go to the temple, and with a straight razor, the clerics shave it skin deep, baby, all the way back. And they give their hair away. Now that hair then from the temple is then sold to the hair industry. And the hair industry in India then takes that hair, that long, luscious black hair, and then they clean it, make sure there's no bugs or anything in it. They wash it, they whip it over some rakes, and they comb it out, and they put it on the weave track, and they send it to the United States of America, where it makes millions upon millions upon millions of dollars every day. There was a guy who walked around with a suitcase full of weaves in Beverly Hills, said that suitcase was worth about $15,000, said he can go through that suitcase in about 3 hours. Dog. That's what, $50,000 a day? About 3 hours. Well, I'll give him 9. So 45. About 3 hours, 3 times 3, 9 hours, $45,000 a day. A day? Wow. And that's just Indian hair. That's not any other hair that comes from any other part of the world. Real human Indian hair, or hair that comes from any other part of the world. They joke around here that Vivica Fox loves Malaysian hair. You know what I mean? Like, all these different kinds of hair that comes from all these different parts of the world. They talk about how the preparations for this hair show goes, the attitude that goes into it, the creativity, the style points, all the stuff that goes into it. And he asks straight up the people who are in this show about, their thoughts on hair and the process and all that other stuff, and it's a part of their lifestyle. It's their business, and he talks with people who put weaves together. And he says that weaves can go. They say that weaves can go, and at the time, this is all these numbers are 2009 numbers. Add 11 years of inflation. At the time, these weaves could go for $1,000 to $3,000. $3,000. That's nuts. That's nuts. Now, it's interesting because the representation of natural hair in this movie is present, but it's not the majority. They specifically get an actress, and I think she was from Cold Case. I think she was on Cold Case. It was either Cold Case or Without a Trace. But she's a black actress. She's got natural hair. She had natural hair, and then did like the curly locks down, but it's more natural textured hair. And she really represents the natural hair movement. Chris speaks with a lot of different black celebrities, men and women. Al Sharpton, Ice-T, Nia Long, video vixen chicks that may or may not have fallen out of relevance since then. Raven Simone, back before we knew how crazy she was. All these different black people. The self-proclaimed inventor of the Jerry curl, he speaks with. He also speaks with the woman who has alopecia, the condition where your hair falls off, the Bobby Lashley condition, which is why, at least for a long time, he had the headband on to keep the sweat from going into his eyes when he worked out while he wrestled. But yeah, he speaks with all of them and gets various different perspectives on it. To me, Nia Long's interviews seem to be some of the most interesting because Chris got really down to the meat of the matter with her. And he got to the meat of the matter with a whole lot of different people. Like, he talked about different things, including, the perception and or myth of black women not being able to get into the pool or being able to pull their hair during moments of intimacy. And that was very interesting because he went to barbershops and he had barbershop conversations and caught him on tape. Authentic barbershop conversations, and caught him on tape. And the guys are talking about being with women that you couldn't touch their hair. This one guy was talking about how he was with a woman who was hitting it from the back, and she told him to pull her hair, and he pulled her hair clean off, and it changed the mood. And I'm relatively with that guy personally. My preference as far as hair is concerned with women is I prefer longer hair. Shoulder length or longer is just more attractive to me. If it's shorter than that, I'm probably swiping left. But even in that vein, I'm not just talking about the straight, relaxed hair. I like the natural look. I like the natural curls. I like that. If it doesn't have to be shoulder length if it's a little bit bigger and goes out a little bit. Like I like that in a woman. I like that natural look in a woman. I like that natural feel in a woman too. I like, being able to give it a little, I was more for show, give it a little tug, coming from the back or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like that because I like that they like that, you know what I mean? But I have been with women that have had weaves and I have asked straight up many times beforehand about the hair pulling. Because that's one of the prerequisites. That's one of the before game things that you figure out that you have to ask because in the moment it fucks everything up. You have to ask. Whether you like the what do your hair pulling, check, choking, check. I don't really ask for about spanking anymore. Like that's just protocol. That's right up there with with the whole rest of the process. But hair pulling, especially particularly with black women, you ask for that very reason. For that very reason. Because it's so expensive, and if you fuck it up, they're going to have to go in for their maintenance maybe earlier than it's supposed to be. Because there was this one woman that Chris talked to where she showed him the $1,000 weave and talked about the maintenance that goes into it, and you got to come back and get it cleaned every month or every 2 weeks and get it reset every 6 weeks, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these rules and regulations that went along with that particular weave that he had on in his hands and on his head. So you have to ask these questions, and they go into depth. They ask like Nia Long about that, and she gets a look in her eyes. There's a look in Nia Long's eyes, and you'll know it when you see it. But there's a look in Nia Long's eyes where Chris asks the question that reads off, nigga, if it wasn't you asking me this question. Like she gave this dagger stare, like, ain't nobody ever asked me this question before on camera. Why you at, like, how dare, like, not mad about it, but like, oh, I can't believe you just asked me that question, and I can't believe I'm about to tell you the answer to this question. Like, there was a look, there was a very honest look in Nia Long's eyes when she answers this question about intimacy and the hair. And it's raw. Like, it's like that look is like, okay, this is going to be the capital T truth right here. And she talks about how getting in a shower with a dude can be more intimate than having sex with the dude because of the hair. And he asks her, and he asks other women too, he asks her about the positions, and she says, basically, how do you have sex with the hair, with the weave? And she says, basically, you got to be on top the whole time. Which is bullshit, because ain't no woman ever on top for too long. I don't care who you are. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Y'all don't have the calf muscles. Y'all don't have the quad. Y'all don't have those haunch muscles to ride for two. I don't know what it is. 30 seconds is usually the max. 30 seconds is usually the max. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Y'all do all that twerking and shit. Y'all do all the dancing and all that stuff, right? But couple seconds. Anyway, anyway, but yeah, very in-depth answers to the questions, and very in-depth questions that he asks. Not just about that. We find out where Reverend Al got his hair perm for the first time. It was courtesy of James Brown, who took him to the White House to help get MLK Day a holiday. It was because of James Brown that Reverend Al has that hair. Okay, great. He interviews all these different actresses, Nia Long, the Raven Simone before she went absolutely nuts, some video vixens, Ice-T. They all talk about their different experiences, the first time that they got their hair relaxed, how old they were at the time. Apparently Maya Angelou was 70, so she was probably working with my mom's friend, the hairdresser who did that with her at the time. A lot of them talk about how they were super young when they got it done first, and there's even like a kiddie perm kit that's not really all that different, but it's just a slightly milder potion of that acid. It's an acid because he goes to a chemist, and the acid, he has 3 beakers set up, and he has a can of water. He puts water in it, but a can of water in one of them that sits for, I think, a half hour, an hour or so. It comes out, all the paint is off of it, it's clear. The second one, I think, was like 3 hours. Again, same thing, but more of it's off, and it's a little more flimsy in his hand. The third one has sat in there for 4 hours. Every portion of it that was in that acid is gone. It's just the little top lip of that aluminum can that was in that acid after 4 hours, gone. They talk about how the chemical burns happen and how it feels like the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your lifetime. When it first happens, at least, but after that, you want your hair straighter, so you hang on for a little bit longer, you hang on for a little bit longer, you hang on for a little bit, and get out! Right, that whole thing, and you see that, that's the thing that you see in the Malcolm X movie from Spike Lee, that was on Netflix. It got moved to somewhere else probably, but it was on Netflix last month. I remember reading about that in his autobiography too. they go into this in-depthness about black hair, and it seems like there's not a whole lot to cover, but there really is. There really is a lot to cover. Like, even the hair show stuff, it isn't just about the contestants and what they're going to do. That sounded like a crash. It doesn't sound like the contestants and what they're going to do in the contest. It's about the business of black hair. It's a twice annual, or at least it was before the world ended, it was a twice annual hair event in Atlanta. You know how important something has to be, how big, how much money has to go into it. If you do it twice a year in an industry, if there's a twice a year championship in that, of the same people holding a championship twice a year, you know how much money's got to be in that? Or not a championship, but a fest like that in the same place twice a year? That's that big all the time. Many hotels sold out specifically for that event. That's huge. That is huge. And it's, it's drug dealer money, man. It's drug dealer money. And there's some women who talked about the relaxers as they call it chemical crack. They call it liquid crack. Because, a lot of them, they said once they started doing it, they found it hard not to. They found it hard to get off of it and go back to their natural look. So it's very interesting. It was very interesting in this documentary. I'm glad I was able to watch it. And I absolutely recommend it to you. There are a couple of things. There's this one, tumbling tumbleweave joke that Chris expands upon a little bit too hard. And even for 2009, it's a little cheap looking. So I'll knock some points off for that. But really, other than that, the threads that he follows are very cohesive. The information is easy to digest and easy to process, unlike, some people's hair. And it's a documentary that is definitely worth seeing. And it's a shame that it flew as low under the radar as it did. It got, some nominations and some awards and stuff. Not as many, again, as it probably should have. But it got some. I honestly would say, let's see. Out of $15, I would say, minus, that little imperfection, I would say this movie, Good Hair, is worth. And see, that's kind of just a minor imperfection. Like, I expected better of them on that exchange, but it's minor. It's really minor. Like, you really should see this documentary. It's really good. I gotta say, I'm wrestling with how much of a doc that's gonna be, and I'm trying to think: is there anything else I would take points off for? No, like. I like the interview style. I like who he talked to. I liked how evenly stuff was represented, and he kind of just presents the information and, pretty much lets you decide what you're going to do with it. That's really the best you can ask for in a documentary. And everybody's friendly. Everybody, is there to participate. I would say, damn, seems like a lot, but I'm leaning towards $14.50 out of $15. And here's why I say leaning towards. Because I know what's going to happen. You're going to get on your clickety-clack machines, and you're going to clickety-clack down there in the comment section, and you're going to tell me, but Surreal, you gave Jurassic Park $14.25. How dare you give Good Hair $14.50? Well, you haven't seen this movie. You don't understand what's going on. And you're just thinking of it in the context of how big Jurassic Park was as a movie, as a franchise, and what it did to the entire cultural zeitgeist, with a huge movie studio behind it and millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in production, and etc., etc., etc. Great. And in the landscape of that and all the context I put into that in that video, which you should watch, in the context of this video, in the context of this movie, in the context of this genre, documentaries, in the context of everything I talked about right here, it's $14.50 out of $15. Because it is so well done in terms of the information. It is competently shot, other than that scene. I'm not going to take too much off for that scene. But it doesn't necessarily look like something cheap, you know. It's not the highest of high film stock, etc., etc. But it doesn't look cheap necessarily. It looks like a mid-budget documentary. So fine, and so that means that the information and the presentation has to then come to the forefront, and for me, it does. So $14.50 out of $15 goes to good hair. Very good freaking movie. I love that flick. I love this documentary. And you should see it. It's on YouTube right now. Just look up Good Hair. And it should pop right up. Free with ads. Should pop up right up. Party people, tell me what you think and how wrong I am down there in the comment section, despite the fact that I drink and know things. Tell me how little I know down there in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. YouTube, you're already here on YouTube, but you should be at patreon.com/0469 and subscribe star.com to help keep the lights on at the party. I'm retooling some things here at the channel, so you're probably going to see me you may see some gaps in uploads, but if you're here and you click that bell and you see all the uploads and you watch and you like them, then fan-freaking-tastic. That's all I can ask for. But share with more people, please and thank you. I'm very, very close to the 1,000 viewer mark. That'd be great. Very, very close to that. I'm about a dozen subscribers away. So I just need that, and then some more watch hours, and then we'll be on our way. But in the meantime, in between time, thank you, and as always, cheers.
I'm a nice guy, I'm a nice place, with a nice smile on my nice face. Turn it back and I'm making sure my night's straight. And when you're out of town, I'll be making sure your wife's straight.